Well, hello, everyone. I am so psyched today to bring to you renowned comedian, musician, and all-around entertainer, Carlos Medina. He's a fellow musician and friend of my brother's, and they played music together in New Mexico for several years. And I have to tell you, your comedy has totally brightened the days of people, especially over the past couple of years with COVID and all this craziness that's going on. So I'm just going to let you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background. Tell us where you're from, and then we'll go from there. So good to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. I was very honored that you would invite me to be part of your program here. And my name is Carlos Medina. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I was born and raised in a little town, a little north between Santa Fe and Las Vegas, a place called El Coruco. And people always ask me, well, where is that? I tell them it's a suburb of Rivera. And then they ask, well, where's Rivera? And so, yeah, I grew up in a very small town, dirt roads, pretty much I grew up with everybody is related. And so it was a lot of fun growing up with, my cousins and brothers and sisters and just a bunch of relatives and in a tiny little village. And moving to Santa Fe was quite the experience. I really love it here in Santa Fe, but I still do have my house out at the ranch, like we call it.
Awesome.
And over the past 10 years I've been lucky to be a full-time entertainer. I would say it's probably going more like on 20 years. But my move to Santa Fe certainly changed my life, and I'm very grateful for the support that people have given me with my music and my comedy. And it's quite an honor to just be able to do what I love every day of my life. And I owe all that to the people who support me.
Well, that's awesome. We all just appreciate, like I said, your comedy and, just making the days a little bit happier, because things have been so crazy. And so I'm a little curious, how many people did you graduate with in your small town?
Well, I went to a rural school probably from first to ninth grade. And the school was little, we had maybe 300 students there. But then high school, we started going to Las Vegas. So I'm a graduate of West Las Vegas. I'm a Don.
Wow.
I think my graduating class was like probably 300 and some people. So it wasn't that small. But where I grew up in Rivera, we would go to Valley Junior High, and that was a really small school, and it was out in the monte. And a lot of fond memories. I've gone back to see the school, and I remember telling a friend of mine when we were in school, I remember we would be able to take like our BB guns and our slingshots, and as long as we put them behind the teacher's desk for lunch, the teacher would take us out and we target practice. And I think if we were to do that today, they would close that school down and fire the teachers probably.
Oh, like that.
It was just a different time, and I feel like we were lucky to grow up in that era and still, got to enjoy being kids and little perks like that,
Absolutely. So I grew up in San Luis, and the reason why I ask is because my graduating class was 14. So I was trying to compare how big
in that department.
Yeah. And our class was unusually small. Most of them are between 20 and 30, but still it was pretty small. And so it was, when you say it was with all of your family and friends, that knew each other or whatever, that was my experience too. So, well, for now, tell me about your journey to comedy and music. Like, has it always been a part of your life? Were you always the class clown, kind of making everybody laugh in school, or how did you get to this point?
Pretty much, I would say. Music was my first love. I was never very good at sports. Music was in the family. My dad had a family band, and that was my first exposure to it.
Mm.
And so I I'd say my first gig was around 6 years old,
Whoa.
and I just continued. I enjoyed it. I loved it, and it was just a part of my life till the late '90s. I guess after I graduated school, it that's when it really started becoming a major part of my life. I I played in a band that some friends and I started in Las Vegas, and we had some pretty good success with that. Then I was fortunate enough to be part of Al Hurricane's band
Oh,
for a
wow.
couple of years. And then I played with Darren Cordova and his band for like 10 years.
Wow.
And after that, I was able to tour pretty much throughout the United States with a good friend of mine from Los Lunas. We know him as El Gringo, Sean Keeney.
Yeah.
I was part of his band probably 8, 9 years. And throughout all that time, I still kept I had a trio, an acoustic trio that we kind of started in Las Vegas, probably the early 2000s. And so whenever we weren't on the road, I'd play with a trio, and that morphed into a band. And so I guess 98 to like 2008 was pretty much the beginning of the full-time gigging. Even though I had a construction company, so I was busy with that. But then right around 2008, 2009, I went full force music,
Nice.
and I think it was 2010. Well, as a kid, I had a lot of issues. I guess you could say mental issues. I used to hear voices, and I had some problems with that. But one day I decided to record a conversation in my head, and that became the first upload I did between two characters that I created, Dynamic and Graviel. And I picked those two names because over the years I've noticed that they're probably the most mispronounced names in New Mexico, at least where I grew up. My tia would always call my primo Dominic El Dynamic, and Graviel. For some reason, there's a tendency to transpose the R and the A, and I found that interesting, not just with the name Graviel or it's Gabriel, but with words like vidrio and piedra. A lot of times you'll hear vidrio and pierda, and it's just I don't know where that comes from, but something
Pader,
like
pader versus pared, and it's
this.
prove, prove versus pobre. And I'm going to tell you something about that I've learned in the past couple of years, because my work centers around Sephardic Judaism and how it relates to northern New Mexico and southern Colorado heritage and culture. And that's the Ladino language does that. And so I honestly think that some of the way that we speak kind of carries over from that language. And so it's interesting that you bring that up.
For sure, it's even growing up, my dad was very adamant about us speaking what he called proper Spanish, and or correct, I guess. So in our household, we spoke three languages: English, Spanish, and then Norte. And
Yeah.
so, that kind of became the basis of the comedy. The first upload was a conversation between those two characters, which I created, just for the sake of giving them names, and it went viral. People were really surprised, and I think it was engaging to hear our accent.
Yes.
And so, it turned into a thing by itself. I mean, it was never I never intended it to become anything other than just like therapy for myself. And I uploaded a second conversation, and then a third, and then by that time it just kind of, YouTube kind of, made it uh, popular, at least in this area. So that led to recording a comedy CD based on those conversations. And I guess around 2014, I got a phone call one day from a guy here in Santa Fe. His name was Max, and he asked me if I ever considered doing stand up. And I never did. I was living in Portales at the time, so I got I got the offer to come in and open for a comedy show at a nightclub. Doesn't even exist anymore. It was the Skylight, and I agreed to do it. I mean, it paid like $100 or something like that. I had a comedy CD, so I remember thinking to myself, it's like a 3-hour drive. I'll take 10 CDs. If I can sell the 10 CDs, I'll be able to keep what it pays, and it'll be a fun trip.
Wow.
So I posted on my Facebook and YouTube that I would be in Santa Fe, and so I made the drive. I remember I left like 3:30, just enough time to get here, park, go do my 10 minutes, get back, and drive home. Well, when I got here, I noticed there was a lot of people. When I arrived in Santa Fe, there was a lot of people standing outside the club, and I got to the front door and I met the guy that I talked to, and he's like, "Hey man, there's a change of plans. Seems like a lot of these people are here to see you. Can
Whoa.
you go last, and can you do 30 minutes?" And so, I mean, I had never done stand up. I didn't really know what it entails. So I just said, "Yeah, I'll go last, and I'll go as long as I can." And so that was basically my first comedy show, and I kind of was just thrown into that industry. But the interesting thing was that because of the power of social media, I had already developed a following and an audience, and then I was able to inform them, that I would be in Santa Fe doing stand up. So I had an instant audience who was already aware of my comedy, and so it was just like it was amazing, because comedians work years and years to develop an audience, and it's really it's an art, and I don't even consider myself a stand-up comedian. I'm more of a storyteller. But that just goes to show the power of social media, and how when you create something unique, people will respond to it. And that was the beginning of my comedy career. And so it was all based on this alter ego, Graviel, and his cousin. And so as things develop, I started coming to Santa Fe more often. I started playing more in Santa Fe, and I realized that people didn't know that the musician and the comedian were the same person. So I played on that for a while. I even would purposely take pictures as the alter ego, and then take pictures as the musician, and eventually people started realizing that it's the same person. And but it was even now I still get, some people will tell me, I like the guy that does comedy during your show. Some people still think it's two different people, but for the most part, I think it's
I mean, I like your music, but can you bring out the comedian guy?
or vice versa.
Vice
I like going to hear your music, but I don't really like the comedian. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't either. He just
We only bring that guy out once in a while. That's funny. Yeah, no, the power of social media is amazing. And it's so cool that I mean, it sounds like it was a huge surprise to you. Like you just were, and how did you fill up that 30-minute space? Was it easy or,
Yeah, I mean, after a while, like I had never done a comedy show, so I wasn't aware of what the flashing lights meant and all that. So I probably went over 10 minutes,
oh,
but
wow.
for the most part, everything just happened. It was just a natural fit, kind of.
So cool. So
Uh,
cool.
that night was pretty much I mean, my life changed without even knowing it. I met a lady was in the audience that was producing a movie in Santa Fe. I met the guy who would eventually become the CEO of Meow Wolf,
Oh, wow.
and I met a person who's become a good friend of mine who eventually introduced me to George R. R. Martin. And a little after that, I came back to Santa Fe to play at a bar inside a really well-known hotel downtown. It's called Low and Slow.
Mhm.
And one of the nights that I played there, I met the girl who would eventually become my girlfriend.
Right.
And we've been together 6 years. But so much changed because of that night. Uh, eventually the lady that was producing the movie ended up offering me an opportunity to do an episodic, but it didn't work out because they were just kind of trying to whitewash my comedy and turn it into something that kind of fits a broader um, audience, I guess.
Mhm.
So I ended up turning that down, but then I ended up getting a monthly show at George R. R. Martin's theater. It's called the Jean Cocteau,
Mm.
and then I from there it led to me becoming an artist at Meow Wolf. So
Cool.
it was it was it was the best decision was to stay here, and I went on to record my first studio album. Meow Wolf produced that as a mariachi album called El Cantador, and we produced a awesome video to that song. I'll probably be able to share it with you for your audience. And then pandemic hit, so Meow Wolf had to lay off a lot of artists, including myself. But it was an honor to work there. I was very empowered, and they really helped me, you know, move on to way further than I would have gone on my own. And I'm still, I've got some. I'm collaborating with him on some projects. Recently, I went to Las Vegas, Nevada, to check out Omega Mart because I have a product in there that I created while I worked at Meow Wolf. It's called Blue Chili. So we all know that in New Mexico, the question's red or green.
Mhm.
I created an alternative, and I invite you in your audience, if you're ever in Las Vegas, Nevada, to visit Omega Mart and check out the blue chili, that sauce that I have there.
So what is it? Tell me about it.
Well, the story kind of it's based a little bit on the story of the I think it's Kopi Luau or Kopi Luau coffee.
Mm.
So there's this coffee bean that grows in the forest, and then this rodent eats it, and the coffee bean goes through its digestive tract. And while it does that, it really intensifies the flavor. So there's people who actually go around following this rodent, collecting the coffee beans after it goes through its digestive tract, and it's like the most expensive coffee in the world. Well, I had an idea that back in the late 30s, early 40s, when Oppenheimer was developing the bomb at Los Alamos, we know that they tested it out in White Sands around that area. Well, I created the narrative for Blue Chili was that there was a family picnicking in White Sands, And of course, being a New Mexico family, they would have green chili and bologna sandwiches. No, anyway, one of the green chili and bologna sandwiches stayed, was kind of like just tossed away, and this little roadrunner came by and you know ate the green chili and the seeds. Well, while he was eating, the first bomb was detonated, the test, and he was radiated. So this green chili goes through the roadrunner's intestinal tract. It comes out, and lo and behold, a few months later, this like blue chili plant just grew. Well, you fast forward like 40 years, and the story is that one of the founders of Meow Wolf was at a rave there at White Sands, and out in the distance he could see something glowing blue. So that was the blue chili plant. So then he he pulled it out, brought it to Meow Wolf, and that's where blue chili. Uh, so Meow Wolf is the only source for blue chili in the world. We have the only blue chili plant that's ever known to exist, thanks to radiation in a roadrunner.
That's so crazy. But is it hot? Does it got some spice and some flavor?
It's sweet and hot, and I'll eat it with breakfast, and you know it, it's definitely an interesting experience. I think people who've been buying it have told me they like it, and the idea was eventually that I would have kind of like a food line under my brand, and
Cool.
that's still a possibility. I'm working with other people to develop more products like that, and of course just other possibilities. There's always opportunities that come from the comedy and the music.
Yeah.
But it's been nice. This last year during pandemic was hard because we couldn't perform, but up to that point, it was nice to just be able to perform pretty much every day of the week if we wanted to, and just do what we love as musicians and now as a comedian.
And there's nothing like that. There's nothing like being able to do what you love. And I tell my kids that all the time. My dad, I got that advice from him: do what you love and the rest will follow. And so I didn't actually follow that advice when I first started out going to college, and some of the stuff I kind of went the back way. And I've learned a lot over the years, but I think honestly, that's the best advice you could give anyone. And if you do that, you'll never work a day in your life. You'll just be having fun. So many wonderful and amazing experiences for you. I keep going back to when you were 6 and you played that first gig. What were you playing, an instrument, or was it singing, or what did you do?
Yeah, I played the accordion. It was always an instrument I was fascinated with, and I always enjoyed writing music, writing songs.
Nice.
But, as a kid, I was a little different than most Hispanic little boys in northern New Mexico. I like to stay inside. I remember, as a kid putting on fashion shows for my mom, and it wasn't uncommon to put on high heels and glittery clothes, and I'd write these little plays. And of course, my mom was my first fan, my most loyal supporter, and it was a little different than most other little boys in the norte. But she just always let me be myself, and I guess that's where the creativity came from. And as I grew up, it just morphed into becoming a musician. And I'm working on a one-man show right now based on that transition from like being a little kid to becoming a full-time musician. And it's been very it's been an eye opener for me and very cathartic as far as like realizing who you really are and where you come from. Um, so I look forward to sharing that with people probably the beginning of next year. We've been spending a lot of time just writing and rewriting,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's definitely a project I'm excited to share with everybody.
That sounds awesome. So other than, being yourself and doing what you love, do you have any other advice that you've heard along the way that you've kind of clung to be able to get to where you are, that would inspire somebody else, that would say, hey, I want to follow in his footsteps?
Well, the first advice I give anybody is don't follow in my footsteps. Stay in school, get educated. Uh, no, seriously, I think do what you have a passion for. That's key. I'm passionate about what I do, and it's it's what I love. And like you said, when you do what you love, you don't work. You
Yeah.
just enjoy, and that's what it's about. Have faith that you're worth it, and that people will appreciate what you have to offer, because only you can offer your uniqueness. And that's the way I look at it. My there's now there's a method to my madness. It's just something that happens naturally. The more you you do what you love. And for me, I was lucky that it became a career, and in a way to support myself and my family. But it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It just takes a lot of effort and a lot of belief. I mean, I remember specific things like you know keeping two extra musicians in your group because sometimes there's schedule conflicts. Being willing to go and pick up your musicians and take them to the gig and take them home, because that's what it takes. It just takes doing whatever it takes to get the job done. But then it pays off because you're able to develop your style, your brand. And once you get to the point where you're a brand, then it just seems like people want to work with you. And social media has been key. Although I do have to say, I'm grateful for all the radio stations who played my music over the years, when before social media. And even to this day, like, radio will never go away. Radio is always going to be a viable source of entertainment and information. And it doesn't matter how many TikToks or YouTube or platforms like that come around. I still think radio, 100 years from now, we'll still be listening to radio. It's never gonna go away. So I'm certainly grateful because a lot of radio stations are responsible for the success that I've had, over the years. And I just, I continue to be grateful for that, because that really laid the foundation for my music. And then, even now, like, I'll collaborate with restaurant owners or other business owners who want me to do commercials for them as Raviel or as Dominic or Tia Lola. And it's become this combination of new social media and radio and TV. And I'm so grateful for all the fans that like and share my videos, because that's become the key to being able to promote my music and grow my brand.
And do what you love. I think one of the things that you said about being unique just makes me think about when I was in school and I started college. Of course, I come from San Luis, right? This small town, and you know, where everybody's pretty much the same. And when I get to Colorado College, it was a huge culture shock, you know. And the only other person that spoke like me was a girl from Walsenburg, and you know, whose family was from Southern Colorado too. And it was so awesome to have somebody there that actually understood my accent and understood that I didn't just cross the border. You know what I mean? That it was, you know, that we've been here for generations and, you know, and centuries. And so I think that's part of it. And I'm so glad that you said you didn't want your comedy to be whitewashed, or you didn't want anybody to make it more, you know, fit a broader audience, because I think a big, huge part of the appeal is that you sound like us, you talk like us, you talk about, you know, you have characters that resemble at least one member of our family or friends, or, you know what I mean? Somebody that we know. And I think that's what's so cool about it. And that's why I think people really flock to it and enjoy it, because it makes you feel like home, you know? And so, that I think that's a really, really awesome thing to do. And so I'm glad that you didn't go that route and you continue to be true to who you are, you know, because that means a lot, I think, to a lot of people. So
Yeah, ultimately, I think people appreciated that, and you know, I talk about that on my comedy show. It would be easy just to kind of sell out. Uh, I mean, I didn't want to move to California. I don't want to film there, like uh, for several years. You know, I would just tell people, if this is as big as it gets, that's fine with me, because this is what I like to do. You know, doing comedy shows at little theaters and playing gigs at small bars is what I get to do for the rest of my life. I'm fine with that because I love it. And and you know, it's just nice to have fans that are really more like family, because they relate to you and you relate to them, and you know, when you get to meet these people in person eventually, um, and that's really what it's about, because you know, money comes and goes, fame is fleeting, and really the only good thing about what I do is the relationships I've created over the years with people who considered themselves my fans, but then we become family and friends, and
that's
uh, you know, you just become part of each other's lives, and that's really the payoff, I think,
yeah.
uh, ultimately, and you know, being able to leave a legacy, if you will, of stories and jokes, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, eventually I hope to write a book. We're working on an animated series now.
Wow.
You know, I'm
So
still
cool.
writing music, and this one man show that we're working on is going to be pretty intense. Kind of more about the back, you know, the behind the scenes,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I guess eventually I'll end up with a really well-rounded show, and you know, people will hopefully appreciate the complexity of what being in this business is. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
the 30 minutes or the hour that you see somebody on stage is just a glimpse of a lifetime of commitment. You know, like
Yes.
I don't know. Uh, this is it for me. I'm not educated. I don't have a trust fund. All I have is what people have given me over the years, and I truly, you know, my mom, since I was a little kid, would always tell me, "You belong to the people," and so
Wow.
that that's it. That's all you know.
That's
That's
cool.
all you can count on, and uh, you know, people have been really good to me, so I'm
Oh,
grateful for that. You know.
that's so, so awesome. Well, I'm a little shy and kind of like hesitant to do this, but I have a little parody of El Llorón, La Llorona. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
Okay, but I have to turn off my video because I won't be able to keep a straight face doing it. And I don't know if this is going to make the final cut, but we'll see. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Mom, it's Llorona here. Why come you? My dad gave all the musical talent to my brother. I like music too, no. And you took all of it, Mom. And it's not fair. He plays the piano, the accordion, the guitarra, and even sings too, Mom. It's not right, and I can't even play the radio, Mom. But you know what? I'm glad you guys gave me all the good looks, but don't tell him I said it. Okay, so
That was pretty good. We should collaborate with that.
and I had to bag on my brother. I told him I was gonna do it, but I mess with him all the time because seriously, like I can sing a little bit, but he took it all.
He's very talented. I've enjoyed, getting to know your brother and playing with him, and uh, crossing paths along that road, that musicians take. And of course, he was a huge part of Ernestine's
Yes.
music and band, and that was so tragic the way things ended there. But I know that Ernestine depended on him a lot for not just music but sound. And of course, he was a big part of El Gringo's music too. I know he played with him, several times, and just he's a great musician and a great person all around.
Yeah. Well, right on. So now I'll leave it to the professional and let you do a little bit of comedy or music or both, whatever it is you want to share with us today.
Well, as far as the comedy goes, I think if it's okay, I can probably furnish you some clips.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll do the same thing with music. But probably the one thing that I would like to share with everybody is just what really catapulted the comedy was the Norte saying of the day.
I love that.
It's a play on this stuff I hear, and everywhere I go, it's just there's always somebody or a group of people who are saying something that I just find so interesting. It could be at a restaurant, at the post office, at the MVD, doctor's office when I take my tia Lola, and
Do you really have a tia Lola?
I do. My grandma and my tia at the same time. Donna makes tia and grandma too, but it's complicated. It's Norte genetics,
Yeah, get it.
When you grow up in a place where everybody's related, things like that happen. But yeah, just on a daily basis, I'll come across 3 or 4 ideas that eventually become Norte saying of the day. Most recently, being at a restaurant, there's these 2 ladies eating. They're getting ready they're pretty much done. And one tells the other, have you had the sopapillas from here? Oh, they're good, she said. So she calls the waiter and says, hey, bring me a dozen sopapillas. And then the other one tells her, no una docena, just 6. I'm on a diet. So that was a pretty good Norte saying. The other one was about pizza. This lady ordered a pizza, and she tells the waiter, make sure and cut it in 4 pieces, not 6, she said, because I'm on a diet.
That's funny. Yeah, that's the power of your mind, though. See, it's psychological. You only have 2 slices, even though they're that big.
Yeah, they're that big. The accents are interesting too. The other day, this friend of mine reached out to me. She's a stenographer, and I haven't released this yet, so I'm gonna share it with you and your audience first.
Yay.
She emailed me and she's like, "Hey Carlos, I need your help because I was taking I was taking minutes for a meeting of this Acequia association, and she's like, I don't understand what this man is saying. Like I know he's speaking Spanish, and I can't translate it. She said, so she sent me an audio, and it was the coolest thing because I've heard this so many times. It's like older Hispanic men, especially, for some reason, will change the S with the H. So like this guy's name was Salomon Sanchez. He was the presidente of the Acequia Association.
Mm-hmm.
When he got up to speak, and she's here, trying to take the notes, he says, Buenas tardes, yo soy Salomón Sánchez, el presidente de la Acequia, de la Asociación de la Acequia de Santa Jovía, dijo. And so everywhere there's an S, it gets substituted with the H sound or the J in Spanish.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was the most interesting thing because she just couldn't get it, like Salomón Sánchez, presidente de la Acequia de Santa Jovía. Like how do you translate that? And so I'm gonna do a whole bit about that.
Love it. That's awesome because you know what? Like growing up over there, it's natural. You understand everything that a person says when you talk like that because that's what you grew up hearing. So to me, it's awesome.
A friend of mine has a linguistics class. He teaches a linguistic class at UNM. His name is Len Beke. He's from Holland. Oh. Anyway, he's been studying language pretty much all his life. Came across my comedy, and he was really intrigued by like the code switching and all the new words that kind of come out of our area. So he actually did he wrote his thesis based on my comedy, and he shared it with me. So every now and then he'll invite me to speak to his class about the different language mashups or whatever you want to call it. And I more than not the majority of those classes are people who have come here from Mexico. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how interested they are in the way we speak, and just it's a great exercise I get to do like once or twice a year.
That's awesome. And I think one time I heard you say something about that somebody had tried to correct you to say yo soy instead of yo seigo. Yeah.
There's a correct, or a proper way, but I went to I was invited to a language symposium. Again, it was full of like a bunch of people who have been studying language all their lives, and they were fascinated because some of the words that I created, like Facebookandoing or Nandoing or whatever, and what I remember one person telling me, like, that's like you're like operating in the genius level. And I said, well, you should come to La Plata because there's a chingal of geniuses running all over the place.
We're everywhere.
But what I learned at that symposium was that language is a tool, and I made an upload about that. Like if you got a flat tire and you're on the side of the road, and somebody passes by and they don't have the cross or the tire tool, but they give you a crescent wrench, and you're able to do it with the crescent wrench, even though it's not the proper tool. Mm-hmm. It still works, and that's kind of the way language is. So I use that in my comedy, and the way I say it is, si tú haces understand what I'm diciendo en you, y yo comprendo what you're diciendo en mí, pues qué pedo,
Yeah, we get each other.
Language is a way to convey a message and information. And who's to say what's right or wrong? I mean, there's proper English, and there's proper Spanish, but at the end of the day, nobody can say, well, you're wrong, because if people understand you, well, then you're not wrong. Your message is getting across, and my message gets across to millions of people.
It's awesome. You know what? It's not wrong. It's just our language developed centuries ago. So it's like even to drive, we're arriar. Well, at that time, we used to drive cattle and horses, and that's what they use for it. And in Mexico, they say manejar, and in Spain, they say conducir. So everywhere it develops differently. It's just a matter, it's fluidity. It's about your surroundings. It's about all of that stuff. And I'm fascinated by language, and I agree with you. I think it is about the message getting across and you understanding each other. And I think the more people realize that, you don't get caught up in the semantics of it. You just enjoy each other's company.
What I've learned, it's become a tool to cut through a lot of preconceived notions, or whether it's an audience of 100%, people from Mexico, like at those classes, sometimes it's first generation students who have never heard anybody speak like this, and it's amazing how quickly they become disarmed to the fact that, oh, well, this guy doesn't speak proper Spanish, because they get it, even though it's not how they grew up hearing, or what they grew up hearing, they get the message. And I think it just helps to diffuse a lot of those negative issues that surround language and borders and
for sure,
politics.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I think everything that you're saying is pretty awesome. It's so cool. And so just any final words or comments that you want to share with us? Oh, any kind of shows and things like that you're doing. What do you have coming up?
Well, right now, because of COVID, we don't really have much live. But like I said, I'm working on an animated series, on that one-man show. And I've been writing a lot of music. So
nice.
Hopefully, by next year, things will be a little more normal, if you will, and we'll be able to perform. I'm not sure when this is airing, but my first show in Colorado will be June 5th. Awesome. In Pueblo. We'll be at the Brass Saddle, I believe. It's kind of like a Father's Day event.
Awesome.
And I'm looking forward to that. And other than that, we've been pretty just been trying to stay safe and keep everybody safe too.
For sure. And so where can we find you if people want to look for you on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube? What are the handles that you go by?
Carlos Medina will probably pop up, pretty much the music or the comedy. And if you want to try attempt to spell Graviel the proper way, it's Graviel.
Nice.
And that for sure will bring up the comedy.
Sweet.
I am also you can find a lot of my products and stuff like that at carlos.mw. That's my Meowwolf website. So there's a lot of stuff connected with that. I encourage you to visit that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for those that are going to look him up, I'll have all of the information at the end of this, and also some clips and some pictures and some fun stuff for you all to hear. So I just want to thank you so much for spending some time this morning talking about your journey and all the fun stuff you've experienced throughout your life, and that you get to do what you love, because you have a lot of fans that appreciate you. So thank you so much.
So grateful. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Take good care. Laters.
No llega el olvido, mija. No pensé que los recuerdos de tu amor me apasionaran, pero aún mis sentimientos los provoca sin cesar. A pesar de la distancia, no he logrado yo olvidarte. Te llevo en mi pensamiento, te traigo en mi corazón. Se me olvidó olvidarte, se me olvidó alejarme de ti. Me muero por amarte, mis ojos por mirarte. Además siempre te sueño y a veces aún pretendo que te llevo junto a mí. Se me olvidó olvidarte, dice la canción. Muchas gracias.
When two people from the norte see each other, that's the first thing they say. What are you doing? And the answer to that is usually, nothing. Why? Who said? And the reason we answer that way is because usually we're up to something bad, no? And we want to know who's ratting us out, no? So you're at the mall and they're like, what are you doing? It's nada. Why? Who said?
Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been a La Gente Legacy production and successful in the SLV. Stay tuned for more.